Hello, my name is Eileen Martin. I'm one of the supervisors for the Buffalo Olmsted Parks Conservancy. Today I'd like to show you the greenhouse at Martin Luther King Park and some of the plants that we're growing to go out into the parks, into the various beds. If you want, you can come with me and I will show you around. Some of these plants here will go into hanging baskets at the Delaware Lodge. These great marigolds are going to go into the bed at in South Buffalo at Heacock Place. The alyssum goes into the rose garden. And you'll be able to see all these plants planted out in the beds through the summer. We also grow a number of ferns. They go into the Japanese garden. In particular, there's some others in some other beds as well. Here we have a whole crop of coleus. These are going to go into the beds at Colonial Circle. We grow most of our annuals from seed. We start anywhere from the end of January on through May. There are also some plants that we grow from cuttings, and I'll show you those in a minute. But here's some begonias and impatiens. They will also go some to the cottage garden at Martin Luther King Park and some in other beds as well. We have some sweet potatoes that will go into some pots as well as the bed at Ferry Circle and some other locations. There's a bed at Martin Luther King Park that will also have some of those. The petunias that we're growing, some of them will go to South Buffalo, others will be at Ferry Circle. The milletgrass you'll be able to spot at Riverside Park. They use a number of them. There's also some by the steps at the Marcy Casino. And you wouldn't know from these little tiny plants, but they'll end up being about 4 or 5 feet high. These yellow flowers on the other side, those are biddens, and we use a number of those, notably at Symphony Circle. But there's also some scheduled to be planted at a bed at Lincoln and Forest, and some in Front Park. Those plants we actually propagate from cuttings. So we'll take small pieces, root them, and grow them on until we have enough plants for what we need to, what we're hoping to plant out. We also grow a number of perennials and some native plants as well. These are the seed heads of an anemone, and that's a native plant, as well as the iris that is in the pot. Behind it, those go wherever the growing conditions are suitable, so along the lake edges, and the anemone will tolerate a number of different conditions. The butterfly weed that you're looking at there is a great pollinator plant. Some of the plants too, the perennials, we can also divide and have more plants that way. These were divided over the winter and very early spring, and now you can see they're just starting to flower, the phlox. and another pollinator plant, and they will increase in size as they're in the beds. I believe there's some over by the Marcy Casino. Canis is a plant that we use in a few choice locations, specific locations, some at Soldier Circle at the top, and more in Martin Luther King Park, a plant that a lot of people are familiar with. This is our back greenhouse. We grow a lot of perennial native plants, and some of those you will see here. These will go out into various beds and parks. All of the parks have at least some of the plants that have come out of this back house. We keep this particular section of the greenhouse cooler. We don't heat it very much during the winter. We keep it at around 40 degrees above freezing, but cold enough to send the plants into dormancy. And some of the things are being grown for future use. These are Japanese maple trees that eventually will probably go in and around the Japanese gardens. We also have a number of native plants. This is a Don redwood tree. Some of the plants we receive or purchase from the Genesee Soil and Water Conservation District or Erie County. And when they reach a substantial size, when we receive them, they're more about this height. And when they get to about this size, they're large enough to be planted out into the parks. This is our refurbishment project. The greenhouses were originally built in the early 1900s, so they need refurbishment from time to time. And currently we are having the brick walls rebuilt. The bricks as well as the mortar was degrading and weathering, and the house itself was starting to not be plumb is the best way to describe it. I'm pretty sure that some of these lilies have made their way to the Japanese garden. There might also be some in front of the Marcy Casino. This penstemon is a really nice native plant, and we have used this fairly frequently. I know that there are some at Delaware near the Marcy on the steps, and also in Front Park. There's some in Martin Luther King Park. So throughout the park system, Front Park as well, and they are a very good pollinator plant, and they are a perennial, so they come back year after year, which makes our jobs a little bit easier. We don't need to replant from scratch every year. We even have some self-sown raspberry bushes that have made their way into the greenhouse, and we reuse them out in the park system as well. A lot of these plants will go into the maintained meadow areas. Because of the concentration of native plants, those are things that we want to increase in the parks, increase the biodiversity within the maintained meadow areas, and help with pollinator issues. Ginkgo trees is one of the things that we've been growing here. Although not a native species, they are highly ornamental. There are several ginkgo trees throughout the Olmsted Park system, and they're fairly easy to propagate, so we're hoping to get some to get to a large enough size to plant out as well. The really nice thing about doing a virtual tour at this time of year is that you're able to see the amount and variety of plants that we do grow here to go out into the parks. One of the more recognizable ones are geraniums. This is a geranium that we use at Gate Circle, and you will certainly be able to see that throughout the summer. They're planted all the way around the circle there. We start these as seeds in January. They take a very long time to get to a size where we plant them out. So from January till the end of May. The number of geraniums that we start, we plant approximately 4,900 seeds to begin with, and hopefully have enough to fill all the locations that we have in mind for them. We also grow a lot of zinnias, and right now they're just germinating and starting to grow. Sometimes our plants escape their pots and self-sow. Even though we didn't plan on them, they look so pretty that we can't bear to rip them out right away. And these really nice red geraniums you will be able to see at Riverside Park. These very pretty geraniums, the majority will be in Front Park. There will be a few in a bed at Martin Luther King as well. One of the more unusual plants that are in the Martin Luther King greenhouse is this very large cactus. It started as a seed in 1986. The head grower at the time, Jeff Cranick, he started this plant from seed, and eventually it fell to the floor. And now it is all the way to the rooftop. We have to prune it back, generally every year or every other year, so that it does not break the glass. It will flower. It flowers in the nighttime, so sometimes when we come in the morning, we will see the blooms still open, but right now it is daylight and it's not in bloom anymore. The flowers drop. Thank you for taking the time to look through the Martin Luther King greenhouses with us. I hope you've enjoyed the looks of the various plants and plants that are going out into your parks, and I hope you go into the parks and find some of these plants there.